A boy named Lu stood before them. Although he was just a barbarian boy, war took his parents away, leaving him to start a new life in another world. This place was wild and full of goblins and ogres. Years down the line, he turned into a huge barbarian. Kaldu throws away all magic and fights with nothing but raw, fierce violence. Now he is a strong genius who will smash every monster with his raw power. A single barbarian stood alone against the whole of his tribe, who all looked ready to fight him. He lifts his huge hammer high into the air, ready to fight. The warrior lunges ahead and strikes one of his foes hard. In the middle of the fight, he lets out a loud roar as he keeps swinging his weapon. The scene changes to a group backed into a corner, and a man screams out the name Evelyn. He screams for them to get the spell ready, promising to buy them some time. The woman grabs the boy's hand and whispers that everything will be okay. The story jumps back in time to show a little kid watching the fight. His father fought his own tribe to keep his family safe and his honor alive. The other warriors charge at him, screaming that he needs to just die already. Even with wounds bleeding all over him, the boy's father keeps fighting back against the fierce attack. Seeing this, the boy races toward his dad and cries out for help. But the barbarian shouts they have no hope and strikes back at the traitors. He keeps fighting the angry mob all by himself until spears start poking him all over. While the woman wraps her arms around the boy, she starts whispering a spell. Suddenly, the spell jumps to life and flings the boy away from the edge. Then she says that any spot in the land of stars feels better than this place. The mother smiles and tells her son Aiden to take care of himself, but the boy begs them not to go, saying he's too scared. His father sees what's happening and screams his son's name, but Aiden turns around confused and gets taken away without understanding. While the enemy strikes, his father yells at the boy to get stronger. He keeps telling Aiden to stay strong so no one will ever hurt him again. The warrior finishes his words and tells his son to survive whatever comes his way. Tears streaming down his face, the boy promises his dad he'll do exactly what he wants. The barbarian then steps up to his final blow and meets his death with great pride. Then the story jumps to us, right now, in a quiet alley somewhere in the city. A group of bullies crowd around a student, grilling him about how he looks so rich. The leader then ordered Jintai Kim to give them his backpack and watch. The student pleads with them to stop, warning that things could get serious. Jin shakes his head and says it's not that, but his friend is already coming. The bully yanked his friend's head and demanded to know if he was some kind of monster. Just then, the aggressor was slammed hard against the brick wall. The others scream in terror, confused by the sudden change to the wall. Suddenly, a strange voice calls out to Jintai, making one of the boys jump. From inside the hole in the wall, a young man crawls out from under the broken pieces. Kelu Kong stares down the group with anger, scolding them for their terrible manners. The leader stammers, asking who the stranger is and how he broke the wall, but the newcomer ignores him and grabs the bully by the collar. He stands tall and speaks with a strong voice, telling everyone that he is Jin's friend. He flings the boy away in one quick, sudden move. As they walk away, Jin can't stop talking about how amazing it was that he managed to break through the wall. He goes on to ask his friend right out if he's actually human. Shell Du Kong snaps back, shouting that he is, of course, human. Jin claims he feels strange, but Kong rushes him on so they can get out. The view shifts to his home, where a pile of dirty bowls tells the story of his dinner. His grandfather watches him and asks with a worried look why he's eating so little. Kong says he can't eat, but his grandfather is happy just watching him. He sighs, frustrated that his grandfather always repeats the same thing about him and eating. In a quick flashback, we see the same man taking the young child, named Kong, in for care. Back in the present, his grandfather tells him that Director Park just gave him a call. Kong shakes his head and tells his grandfather he won't be an athlete, leaving the old man completely speechless. The man questions why anyone would toss away a gift that brings him so many awards. He explains that sports break the rules of fair play, so Kong decides true warriors must fight real rivals instead, but he runs into a major problem because of a secret detail about the planet. He sits on the porch, wondering that this quiet world feels too calm for someone like him. Inside, his grandfather watches TV and wonders what all the noise could be. The TV news is showing a mysterious disaster happening in the city of Chongju. Kong steps up and asks what happened while his grandfather tells the story of what went wrong. His grandfather talked about monsters, and Kong repeated the word with a look of curiosity. The report goes on to show fresh video of what's happening in the disaster zone. When the news warned everyone to be careful about a strange creature, he turned away as soon as he saw it on the screen. His grandfather tells him to sit, admitting that he's starting to make him nervous. The old man just couldn't figure out why his grandson reacted that way to everything that happened. Kong spins around to tell his grandfather he'll be back in a moment. The view shifts to a road sign pointing the way to the city of Chongju. Jintai grumbles that he's never driven this far before. Kong tells him to get a license, but his friend just thanks him, saying Kong actually saved his life. While driving, Kong remembers the monster he saw when he was a kid. The car slams on its brakes just before hitting the barrier ahead. When he arrives, he spots a crowd and knows something big is going on. Jin joked that the disaster wasn't just talk, and after spotting soldiers on the scene, an armed man walked up to Kong, praised his muscles, and asked who he worked for while introducing himself as part of Nuzang development. The man slides a card across the table and invites him to come along with them. Kong stared at the card and asked if they were a guild of real warriors. The recruiter chuckles at his question, wraps an arm around him, and thinks the whole thing is hilarious. He tells them they aren't just fighters, but are building a new home on a distant world. Kong stares at the card as the man pushes him to join, but Kong tears it up and declares, "I'm a warrior, not just a worker." The man's face twists into a furious scowl as he screams at being told no by no. Kong tightens his fist and challenges the insult to a warrior's honor, just as strange things start happening right at the tunnel entrance. From deep inside the tunnel, a shapeless blob suddenly spills out and spreads over the ground. A leader yells at everyone to get ready because something big is coming. The huge mass rushes forward, swallowing several people whole as Jintai screams, killed his name in desperation. Suddenly, a glowing sphere floats into the sky, and a system window pops up to tell everyone that the exam has begun. Kong looks up to read the warning on the screen, which says the world is ending unless the planet Nova saves them. Suddenly, a rush of power crashes down from the sphere and washes over everyone there. The system tells them to run to Nova just as the portal starts pulling everyone inside. A beam of light dropped down into a quiet spot deep in a forest we don't know. The view changes to a tree branch where a voice asks what happened. Jin screams in despair, clutching his head and begging to know where everyone has gone. He then launches into a flurry of punches at Kong, shouting about his car and demanding to know where it is. A system window pops up right before him, cutting short his panic. The mission says they must find a goblin coin to move their class forward. Kong turns away from the screen and points out that Jintai needs to look ahead. They stand surrounded by a crowd of green creatures watching them from above. The monsters stare at the two of them, and Jintai, trembling with fear, asks what they are. He says that nothing makes sense and asks if they have to fight those things. Kong doesn't hesitate for a second and rushes straight at the monsters in front of him. Kong runs straight at the monsters without even thinking twice. He then shows his teeth, getting ready for the first attack on the creatures. Kong punches the first goblin right in the chest with all his might. The creature flies backward, slicing a long path through the tall grass. He weaves through the wild swings of goblin clubs as they try to trap him from all sides. He tightens his fists and readies himself to fight back against the monsters swarming around him. With a quick snap of his hand, he hits a goblin right on the side. He keeps battling the monsters, screaming for the end of the world to finally arrive. He lands a hard punch right in the face of one of those creatures. Then he keeps fighting, landing sharp blows that knock out several goblins. Jin stands frozen in shock, unable to believe he just crushed them so easily. As the final monster hits the ground, his friend's attack has finally brought him down. In the blink of an eye, the goblin melts away right before him. A coin takes the place of the monster, and he wonders what it means. He grabs the item and realizes it's the goblin coin the screen talked about. He then picks up the shiny coin and stares at it with curiosity. The screen flashes with a message telling him he has passed and must head to the Nova portal. Jin walks up and asks what it takes to step through a portal into another place. Kong turns to him and wonders if that portal in the forest is even real. Suddenly, a huge, dark doorway pops into the sky right above them. Over in another place, Jin shows up looking all beat up and starts yelling at Xiaolu for what he did. He screams out in pain, begging to know why he was tossed into the middle of so many goblins to die. Kong explains that since the coins can't be moved, he has to get his own. Jintai keeps whining while a goblin rises behind him, club in hand. The monster lunges forward and Jin screams that he thought they were all dead already. Kong then stomps on the goblin's head, declaring that fighting is the best way to grow. He promises to help Jintai and tells him not to worry because he won't die. Jin thanked him, saying he at least got to finish the mission he was given earlier. The view shifts as a pair of binoculars slips out from the nearby bushes. One of the watchers points to a bag and says the goblin stole it from them. The two men realized it was time to head out and hunt down the creatures there. Kong returns to find the bag and discovers food inside. Just as he gets ready to eat, a gun is pointed right at him. Two soldiers rush in, screaming for the goblin to die, but the one aiming his weapon is confused and doesn't understand what's happening. As his partner shouts that they're human and Jint holds up his hands to surrender, the two later share a meal where the soldier apologizes for the earlier mix-up, and when he asks if they're truly alone, Jint admits they arrived knowing nothing, while Hente wonders if the army is behind this final exam they're taking. He says the government is getting ready for the end and tells us that on the planet Nova, companies are already fighting to build the first colonies. Kong then asks if Nova is full of monsters like the ones they've seen. He hears the soldier admit that this spot is just a test, since Nova is even worse. The soldier hands the bag back, and Jintai thanks him over and over again for his help. Kong thinks about the warning that the new world will be even harder to survive in. He gives a smug grin and reminds himself he's got plenty of hunting left to do. Then the view moves to the forest sky, where stars shine bright under the cover of night. Hente grumbles about the hunt, but Kong says they can't just stand still, so the two keep moving quietly through the tall, dark woods as he reminds his friend that they need to get much stronger now. He notices a strange tower rising up, topped by a different kind of goblin, while others crowd around it. The creature acts like it's doing a strange ritual, and Kong finds himself wondering just what it could be. Jint tells us the monster is unlike anything we've seen, but Kong says he just heard a strange noise. Hente warns that it's too dangerous, but Kong charges into the attack anyway. He lunges ahead with a frying pan, yelling that the more danger there is, the better it gets. The goblin guards turn to see him coming, but have no clue what is going on. Kong charges into the monsters, shouting for them to get out of his way, while the goblin perched at the tower's peak kept a cold eye on the battle raging far beneath him. Kong begins to climb the structure, leaping toward the goblin chief. He yells at the goblin to hold its breath, letting it know he's on his way to grab it. The beast just growls back at its strange new challenger. Just as lightning flashes in the sky behind the monster, Kong notices the goblin is casting a spell right as a bolt crashes down from the tower. He lifts his head, stunned by the magic his enemy wields. The lightning strikes Kong right in the center of the tall tower, killing him instantly. Seeing this, Jint lets out a terrified scream, crying out his friend's name in pure desperation. The goblin chief just laughs as he watches his magic take effect. Then it looks down and starts talking to the fighter it just defeated. Kong rises from the ashes, completely burned, yet he claims this chaos is the most thrilling experience of his life. The goblin gets furious and raises its staff to strike again, pumping more power into the blow. It shoots more lightning at Kong as he climbs the tall tower, but Kong keeps going and orders the monster to never stop attacking. A picture of his mother flashes before him, and he screams that he is the son of a sorceress. He kicks the structure with such force that it bursts with power, wrapping him completely in its glow. Then he stands before the goblin and warns that whatever doesn't kill him right away will only make him stronger. He roars that the enemy's assault just makes him tougher than ever. The stored energy bursts outward, turning the tower's wooden frame into splinters. The whole tower shatters and falls apart from the sheer force of the hit. Kong then tumbles onto the broken ground, landing right in the wreckage left behind after the fight. He says it was a close call and feels lucky for the magic he got from his mom. Suddenly, things start dropping from the sky, though they aren't any kind of coin. A glowing ball of magic floats into view, and he wonders if he'll finally become a powerful sorcerer. The sphere zooms right into his chest, leaving him shocked. As the orb's energy is absorbed, pure power wraps around him completely. He stares at his hands and feels like he's getting stronger than ever before. Then he tightens his hand into a fist and wonders if that is the orb's power. Jintai sprints toward him, screaming his name as he moves through the wreckage. He wonders how Kong managed to survive, and if he's even a real person. Kong just stares at him while his friend asks if he's hurt, but he turns with a smile and warns that they need to go on a serious hunt. As Kong talks about hunting more goblins, the crowd panics and begs him to stop. The boy shrieks for him to stop and falls backward at the ridiculous idea. The next day, they set up their camp deep in the forest. Jint woke up, fixed his glasses, and stared at his friend with a suspicious look. Kong shouts to him, showing that he spent the whole night hunting and gathering even more orbs. He holds up the 3 glowing orbs, his eyes bright with excitement as he can't wait to see just how powerful they really are. While Kong cheers for his growing strength, Jint laughs at him, calling him a madman. Suddenly, a warning flashes up to say that huge bosses are showing up in the arena. The system tells them to run because the bosses are way too strong for the new players. Jint shouts for him to run to the portal, but Kong just stands there, frozen in place. He claims this is thrilling, even though Jintai thinks he's a psychopath. Suddenly, a huge foot slammed down right beside them. A young ogre shows up, letting out a scary roar right in front of the soldiers who are pointing their guns at him. The leader tells everyone to shoot for the monster's hand, and they fire but the beast just roars again because the bullets can't hurt it, so it lifts its club and swings hard at the soldiers. One soldier lets out a desperate scream as he watches the blow coming right for him. Just as the ogre lunges to strike, Kong steps in at the very last moment to block the blow. The soldier looked up, wondering who had just saved him from the attack. He stands before the giant ogre, finally ready to battle something truly huge. Then he shouts for everyone to move out of his way fast. Kong charges forward, screaming that he will bring that ogre down no matter the cost. He roars as he rushes forward, winding up his fist for a huge punch. He then hits the giant monster right in its belly with a mighty punch. Kong stares in shock, realizing his punch landed with no effect whatsoever. The ogre stood motionless as if the mighty blow had barely tickled its skin. With a roar, the beast fights back with a hard hit that sends him flying, leaving a deep scar in the dirt behind him. People shout that the monster is stronger. The ogre steps forward toward the fallen Kong, ready to end the fight once and for all. Even hurt, he admits his opponent is way stronger. The monster lifts its heavy club, ready to smash its victim on the ground one last time. Kong slips away at the very last moment, barely avoiding the blow. He hits the ogre's chin, and it screams from the sudden punch. The beast swings wildly with a flurry of attacks, but he slips through every blow like smoke. Kong notices the ogre's moves are easy to read, so he grabs a chance to slip right under his opponent's arm. He grabs the monster's arm and declares that it will be the beast's own strength that defeats it. With a yell, he leans back to let the enemy's weight crush him. Kong grabs the ogre, swings it up, and then smashes it down onto the ground. The monster crashes down head first, shaking the ground beneath its feet. He jumps on the fallen ogre and tells him he can thank him later for this. Kong yells that he's going to fix its teeth and gets ready to launch a mighty attack from the sky. Then he crashes down with all his might, smashing right into the ogre's face with a blow that leaves it shaking. The monster is dazed and covered in blood, yet he keeps punching and shouting that the fight isn't over. He throws a wild flurry of punches, driven to finally put the monster down for good. The soldiers stood frozen in shock, staring at the giant ogre lying defeated before them, completely unable to believe that a man had beaten it using only his bare hands. Kong throws his arms up and cheers wildly, shouting that he just beat a tougher monster and daring any other boss to come fight him now. Suddenly, the ogre melts away into tiny pieces and slowly disappears into thin air. Suddenly, a new item takes its place and surprises him with a reward. A blue orb appears where the great monster fell, and he picks it up, curious about the power it might hold. But when he takes a closer look, he's shocked by the gift he just got. The soldiers thanked him, but he just wanted to fight the monster. One of them tells him he should stock up at the warehouse before he goes. The view changes to a warehouse where a goblin shopkeeper is busy serving customers. The goblin stares him down and waves him over to see his wares. Gentai is shocked when a goblin starts talking, and the soldiers wave goodbye. He then turns to his friend and asks what they should do with all the coins they've collected. Kong answers that the fix is straightforward. He opens a bag packed tight with swords and other weapons. Then he pulls out another bag full of sidesteps and all kinds of sharp weapons. He shouts that they're going to use it all to get ready for the next big challenge. A screen flashes to say they've earned a spot inside Nova. The two friends head toward the glowing portal with their new gear, and when Gentai asks if Kong is scared to go to another planet, Kong just laughs and lets the swirling light lift him up. He then screams that he's super pumped to be whisked away to the new world. Standing in Nova, Gentai points up to show the two moons hanging in the sky, and Kong notes that the place feels just like Earth, only a bit different. Gentai points to some lights and suggests they follow them, knowing that others must be there. Right in the middle of their journey, Kong grabs him and tells him they've run into a problem. His belly growls so loud he has to shout to his friend that he's starving. Gentai freezes in terror, remembering his friend turns into a monster when hungry, just as a woman's voice asks if they're new to Nova. A woman walks out from the woods and offers her help. Kong wonders if there's food around, while Jin asks if he's from Earth. He tells her they came with almost nothing, and she seems to get it right away. She sees Jin's bundle but quickly waves it off, telling him not to worry. The woman points the way, saying she knows a spot with food, and tells them to follow her. The two thank her over and over for her help and walk with her through the dark forest. She points forward and shouts that they've finally arrived. She says she was lucky to find this great spot for fishing. Gentai opens his bundle to reveal he's going to build a makeshift fishing rod. The woman says she'll grab the bait, and Gentai gives her the green light. He keeps putting together the fishing rod while Kong grabs him and shouts that he'll starve if he doesn't eat right away. A message pops up on the screen, telling him that he just made the rod and learned a new skill. He packs up his gear to go fishing, sure that a little bait will bring him catch. Kong, fed up and shouting, declares he's going to grab that fish right out of the water with his bare hands. He plunges into the water while Jin asks why he did such a crazy thing. Jin pulls back from the edge as his friend keeps searching for fish in the water. A voice asks him why he is all alone in such a lonely spot. The woman came back with a group, and Jin stumbled over his words, trying to figure out who those people were. She laughs and asks if he really thought they were friends, making fun of his naivety. The woman says to him, "You're in Nova, and all you're doing is asking to get robbed." The men seize him, and he demands to know if they've been tricked this whole time. She refuses to admit it, claiming it's just about staying alive and forcing him to give her everything he owns. Jintai warns that those who harm his friend will soon come to regret it. One of the bandits slaps him across the face, laughing at the threat. They ask the woman where the other man is, and one of them scoffs, claiming he must have jumped into the water out of fear. Just then, Kong steps out of the water only to find a giant monster snapping at his jaws. The whole group freezes in shock as one of them lets out a terrified scream, screaming that he's being eaten alive. Even as the monster's jaws close, he still feels the amazing new power he just found inside his own mind. He remembers getting a black ore from the ogre he just beat up. Then, he is shocked to find out the real power of that strange thing. The screen flashed a message telling him the item was the ogre's skill orb. Back in the present, he laughs as the monster bites him, but hurts him not at all. He earned a special skill called Ogre Skin that is harder than steel. In one swift motion, he brings the river creature down right there. He steps out of the water with a massive beast balanced easily on his shoulders. Kong steps up to the group and admits there's just enough food for two. While people scream for help, saying those guys tricked him into a trap, he stays focused on the crocodile and asks his friend if there's a problem. Jin screams that they're getting robbed and that he got slapped too. The bandits step up to him, daring him to fight and asking if he's truly ready for the battle. One of them steps up to strike, shouting that they have more allies on their side. Kong stops him cold with a fast punch that lands right on the bandit's face. Then he tells everyone to get ready because he doesn't fix problems, but instead, he just gets rid of them. Kalu turns to the group and asks if they're the Yonga clan's thugs. 5 people kneel down to listen to him. Their boss nods and agrees, then asks which family the new person comes from. Then Chu sits right on a crocodile and asks who is in charge. The man smiles and says, no, it's not him, revealing that the boss is Yongayan, the toughest man in the whole region. One of the women in the group shouts a warning that they're doomed because the boss is stealing the stones. Right then, Chiyu takes a bite of the roasted crocodile meat and remarks that their boss seems pretty troublesome too. The group members gasp, their hands flying up to cover their mouths as they stare at what they just saw. Kelu then tosses the rest of the animal onto the ground right in front of them. He stands up and tells them to take him to their boss. He wipes his mouth and orders to be taken to Yongu right away. The scene moves to the Yingu clan's base at night, where 2 men suddenly crash to the ground with a violent thud. Kelu stands his ground while the henchmen talk about how strong he is. He picks at his teeth and mentions that the crocodile meat took a long time to go down. The clan members are confused about his identity until one points out that he arrived with the new recruits, sparking an immediate outcry where his guide is called a traitor by his own comrades. Kalu brushes them off, shouting for Yongu to step out and fight like a real man. Out of nowhere, a voice chimes in to ask why everyone is making such a big deal. Jintai Kim watches the scene play out, his face full of surprise. The clan chief steps forward, moving slowly toward the crowd. Yongu Jan shouts in anger to find out who is messing with his men. As the two stand face to face, the chief scolds Chiyu for being too young to speak with such attitude, but Chiyu fires back by asking if he's really proud of how he treats the weak. In a split second, he darts forward and hits the chief right in the face. Yongu smiles and asks if his mother didn't teach him to respect his elders. The clan chief is stunned when Chaolu admits it, then adds that she even taught him the strongest person always gets to make the final call. Yongu clenched his fist and called the rookie a funny guy. He then lifts his fist and admits he truly likes the kid. So he offers that if he wins, Kelu will stand right beside him as his second in command. Kelu says yes, but adds that he has his own special rule if he wins the fight. He points at his goons and declares that if he wins, they're coming right along with him. The group's leader stops and asks where that crazy idea suddenly came from. Chiyu shouts that it's time to have some fun and immediately dashes forward to attack. He jumps into the air and drives his hammer down with every ounce of strength he has against his opponent. Yongu wondered if he was about to start without even getting a warning first. He grabs Kaido's fist and jokes that kids these days can't wait for anything. Jin Kim looks on and shrugs that the blow did nothing, but the henchman replies that their boss already has 12 skill stones. As Kala lunges forward, he shouts that the chief's skin is tough as an ogre's. Even Yongu admits his own skin is as tough as an ogre's. But his strike starts to crack the chief's strong defense. Kala claims he hasn't faced anyone tougher since that giant ogre. The chief was slammed backward so hard that his feet scraped the ground. He grins and asks if the kid is done tickling him. Yongu roars with rage and charges forward, screaming for Chaolu to go to hell. Their hands smash together in the air with such force that Yongu freezes in shock, wincing from the sudden, crushing pain. His fingers start to crack from the force of the hit. A message pops up to show you a special ogre skin power that kicks in whenever you get hit. Chaolu's skin shifts right after the chief hits him, and he thanks the chief for the punch. He then grabs Yongu's neck with amazing strength. Chaolu tells him to freeze right now, or he might get hurt. The clan members scream that they will fight beside their chief, but Chiyu's group steps in to block their way. Their boss shouts that they must smash through the crowd before anyone can stop them. One of the henchmen asks if he's truly turning against the clan. The henchman answered that he would always serve whoever was the strongest. Chu delivers a sharp uppercut that sends the chief flying. The people walking with him stand frozen in shock as they watch the scene unfold. Yongu slams onto the dirt as his men scream his name. Down below, the clan chief begs Kalu to stop, screaming and pleading for his life, but Kalu stands ready in the air to strike the final blow. Just before he could hit the chief in the face, he stopped his fist at the very last moment. The clan watched, confused by what he had done. Sheldu remarks that a chief begging for his life looks truly pathetic. The view shifts to show a pile of supplies scattered on the floor. His new group says they're ready with everything packed, so he suggests they head out. He spins around as a familiar voice calls out to him. Yongu, still lying on the ground, begs to ask just one last question. He asks the young man who beat him to say which clan he is from. Kelu turns his head and laughs, calling the whole clan business a big joke. He tells the group that he's actually just a high school student. The view changes to show someone lashing ropes together to build a camp. The new member thanks him for taking them in, and Chiyu simply says they better be useful. He finally has his first teammates to fight alongside him. Chiyu tightens his fist and admits he still feels weak. He still recalls the split second when he almost stopped himself from finishing off the former chief. By himself, he whispers that he should have struck harder and never stopped. With that, he turns to Jint and names him the sub-leader. Kelu asks if any orders have been given, and the boy is very surprised. Jin admits he ordered the tents to be set up, and Kelu congratulates him on it. The boy asks where they are going, but he just says he has already picked their destination. Jin sees something far away, and Kelu feels his gut telling him to pay attention. He also says they will grow stronger if they go there. Kelu then points toward a huge, dark pyramid standing tall in the distance. A system window pops up to tell them they've found the sacred pyramid. Kelu clapped his hands and told the group they had set up the tents just right. He says he'll swim across the river and tells them to keep an eye on the camp. The old clan leader asks when they're heading back. Kaeldu says he'll wait until it's time to head back to Earth before returning. Then the man tells us that the portal in this world opens up every 5 days. Jint feels a wave of relief, knowing that the portal opens on its own, just as he needs. Kaeldu promises to come back in 3 days to bring the grandfather home. He wants to know the man's name who shared that useful info, but Sheldu cuts him off and declares, "Your new name is number 1. Then he tells everyone they will be numbered from 1 to 5. The lone woman in the group grumbles, insisting everyone has real names. Shelda glares at her and asks if she has a problem with his decision, then turns to leave as the group says goodbye. The two of them step into the river to cross. Once he's safely on the raft, he turns to Jintai and asks what he thinks of his work. Kella grumbles that rowing is a real pain, but he admits it's teaching him a lot. Suddenly, a spark of an idea lights up in his mind, and he immediately begins to tie the rope tight. Jint orders him to sit down and warns he'll capsize the raft, but Kelu complains it's too slow and dives into the water to try something else. He plunges deep into the river while giant crocodiles swim nearby. Then he drags the raft along at breakneck speed until Hente admits it's the fastest way to go. The boy watched the scene, seeing how fast Chiyu had settled in. Suddenly, the scene jumps back to show him shrinking in fear and screaming at an earlier moment. He also recalls the time Kailu gave him the group's nickname. He tightens his grip on the oar and shifts his stance. After the long walk, they finally stand before the massive pyramid, and Jintai shouts that it looks even bigger when you're right up close. He looks at the system window and says it's the first time he's ever seen rewards. Chiyu thinks it looks amazing, so he calls Jintai to get coins, but the boy uses Chiyu's name, and it stops him in his tracks. Jintai suggests that this time they should gather the coins all by themselves. Jint says the world is coming to an end, yet he hasn't done a single thing to stop it himself. So, He says this time he's going to try it all by himself, with no one to help him. Suddenly, the view shifts to a stunning sunset glowing through the trees in the forest nearby. Meanwhile, Chalu steps up to fight a beast that looks like an ostrich. He keeps punching the creature, shouting that fighting something new is the best fun of all. Just then, another dinosaur suddenly appears and rushes right at him to attack. Kella grabs the monster and asks if it thinks there's any chance of winning. He then delivers a hard hit, declaring that he's about to turn it into a chicken. Once the fighting stopped, he told everyone he'd gathered every coin and orb he needed. Then, something strange jumps out at him, and he quickly whirls around to stare back. A soft glow spills from the monster, and he wonders what's making it shine. A system window popped up to show that the item is a skill stone. Jildu swallows the item, cheers at his new power, and feels ready for whatever comes next. Right then, he suddenly remembers something super important. He ponders how Jintai is doing while a monster creeps up on him. The crowd shouts at the monster, urging it to follow them this way. Then the beast lets out a terrifying roar and charges at him with pure rage. He sprints through the woods while the monster pursues him right up close. Then he yanks the rope with all his might, hoping it will hold. As the trap rope tightens around the monster's neck and flings it high into the air, he shouts that he has finally caught it. The creature dangles by a thread, yet keeps fighting to snap the rope and get free. Hentei leaps and strikes a deadly blow right on the monster's head. He crashes to the ground, too tired to fight monsters anymore. Holding the weapon, he says it was a smart move to craft a knife with teeth. He boasts that he'll perfect his own unique hunting style, but then a massive forest orc suddenly jumps out from behind him. Jin spins around to stare at the creature, wide-eyed and totally shocked by what he sees. The orc swings his club hard, but he barely misses, rolling out of the way just in time. Lying on the ground, he glances at the orc and remarks that it's larger than Chiyu. As the orc readies to strike, Jint, trapped and outmatched, shouts for a rescue. Suddenly, a rock flies through the air at lightning speed, heading straight for the monster. The rock strikes the orc right in the head, stopping its attack dead in its tracks. The monster is so shocked by the hit that it can't move, and the huge orc crashes to the ground right in front of him, completely knocked out. Jint glances to the side and asks what just happened. Then he sees Chiyu far away, getting ready to throw again. Kaedu smiles and completes his throw with a perfect hit. The scene shifts, and he admits that checking on his friend was a smart move. Jintai sighs, wishing he had the strength to handle even the weakest monsters here. He notes that he's always relied on others, and nothing has changed here. But Kella walks up and gently tells him not to be so tough on himself. He hands over a piece of meat and says it's okay to feel weak. As Jintai grabs the food, Kyla reminds him to keep training hard. While Jintentai watches on, Chiyu dives into the meat and starts chewing it down fast. Chiyu says that as a barbarian, he isn't like other people. Jintai is stunned by the news and asks what he means, while Chalu stares at him in shock, wondering if he truly was in the dark. He drops a bombshell by admitting he's a barbarian from another world, leaving Hentei staring in shock. The boy yells out, wondering if he's talking about the monsters for video games. Then people remember a few moments, and suddenly it all clicks. He leaps up and denies knowing anything. But Kelu insists he never thought he missed anything, explaining that comparing them is pointless because they are just not the same. The scene shifts, and the two of them finally make it back to the sacred pyramid. They hand over the coins, and a message pops up saying the pyramid is now awake. Then they get a reward that wakes up their inventories, ready for them to use. Shalu quickly realizes that the prizes change based on how many coins you hand over. Suddenly, a new window pops up to tell them their recovery speed has doubled. Jint cheers, already feeling lighter and less tired thanks to his newfound strength. Jint stands frozen, his face set in stone as he stares right ahead. Then he touches the pyramid wall and shouts strange words, which causes a horde of orcs to appear, making Jint scream and cling to Chiyu until Kaialu shoves him aside, insisting he must fight now that he has his rewards. Jint steps back to watch Kaialu slowly walk closer. Chiyu tells him not to fear the enemies that have shown up, reminding him that Jintai now has a barbarian fighter standing by his side. But Kaialu charges forward, screaming that he'll meet them on the other side of the fight. Jint jumps back in shock, yelling that he was sure they'd be fighting side by side right here. Right as an orc lunges in with its spear, Kelu steps in and blocks the attack. He grips the weapon and wonders if it's right to use it against someone who has no weapons. Then, he effortlessly hoists the orc and the spear high above his head. The monster crashes to the ground and complains that it was against the rules, but Kella steps on him and tells him to keep things fair and clean. Then, a new orc jumps out from behind him, ready to hit him as hard as it can. He turns to see the new threat but Jint pops up and lands a sudden punch right on the monster's face. The orc looks at the boy, totally confused by the hit it just took. Hente steps up to fight the creature, but the orc strikes him right in the face. Just as Jint is struggling, another enemy leaps in to join the fight and starts pounding him. He gets knocked down hard, screaming that he's about to die right there. Hente crashed to the ground, hurt from a long string of monster attacks. Suddenly, his holy blessing wakes up and starts mending him fast. He says he's getting better and ready to sit up. The orc strikes hard once more, but the fighter jumps clear just in time to dodge the heavy blow. As he runs, he shouts that he needs to be strong to be friends with a barbarian, but the monster strikes him again and throws him hard to the ground. Jintai is slammed hard to the ground, landing a long way away from his enemy. He springs to his feet and admits the enemy caught him off guard right there. As he sits up and wipes his face, he realizes the attacks are following a pattern. Then he bolts forward, shouting that it's his turn to strike. He guesses the orc will swing down from above, so he slips to the side just as it falls and strikes back. He says he has to twist away from the deadly hit to get the upper hand on his rival. Hente steps forward and drives his knife right into the orc's flesh. He readies himself to strike the final blow against the monster. The orc collapses to its knees, too weak to fight on. As Jintai basks in his win, Kelu steps up to hand him a well-deserved compliment. He notes that the boy has grown stronger, and Jintai adds that he's finally getting the hang of it. But then he shifts the conversation and calls Kelu unbelievable. The boy points to the other orcs, claiming he beat them with spears. Suddenly, a notification pops up telling him he has finally unlocked the mastery of the spear. Kelu says he learned his new trick by throwing himself into fights with the stolen gear. Then he realizes he can pick up new tricks just by switching to different weapons. Thrilled, he asks if Jintai is better, but the boy looks suspicious. Shalu points to a spot and tells his friend to take a look over there. He points out the trail to their secret hideout and hands them fresh weapons. Suddenly, the view shifts to a single orc dragging a heavy wooden log. While far away, two spies watch the orc camp from the shadows. As one spy chats about a vacation and the other agrees it's time to go home, a hand suddenly snatches one of them by surprise. Jelu steps up and signals the two spies to hush. But one of them can't help but point out that walking around without a disguise in enemy territory is a terrible idea. The spy tells him to run because the spot is too dangerous. He points to the leader, a huge orc king sitting on his throne. While others claim they'd need an army, Kelu spotted the weapon. Then he rises and declares he will grab the leader's axe. Kelu and Jint began their walk toward the orc camp. Inside, the monsters are screaming in agony while their scattered bodies litter the floor. He stands up to the orc lord in the middle of the chaos. Chaolu urges Jint to take a rest, declaring that the big enemy is now his to handle. Jint watches, puzzled at how he suddenly knows the orc language. But Kelu says he was just echoing back everything they told him. The orc lord's face twisted in rage as a human mocked him. He charges forward with everything he has, smashing his axe down with a mighty blow. Chiyu simply halts the attack, takes a close look at the orc, and realizes the heavy armor will make the fight tough. Suddenly, a spear lying on the ground shoots toward him. He grabs the broken axe to fight off the surprise attack. Seeing the problem, he realizes he must switch his plan right away. Kael'da lunges forward and rips a strong hold on the orc lord's leg. He readies himself to snatch his enemy's weapon and turn it against them in the fight. Then he shouts that he's going to grab the monster's axe himself. He easily lifted the orc lord into the air using his strength. The giant beast flinched in shock, stunned by the power of its opponent. Chaolu snatches the axe from their hands and thanks them for the gift. He jumps high and strikes the big orc right on the head to end the fight. A system window pops up to tell him he has finally mastered the axe. The spy watched the scene and whispered that he couldn't believe he had actually beaten the leader. Jint cheers loudly, yelling that Kalu took down the giant monster that just showed up. The other spy claims he's so terrifying, he's almost a monster himself. Holding the axe tight, he finally asks who the real monster actually is now. The view changes to a military base, where we see the front of a building. In her office, Colonel Jin tells him he took down the ogre all by himself. The soldier agrees and mentions that he also wiped out orcs in Nova, then wonders why they didn't watch someone with his talent. As the colonel reads the report, he suddenly realizes he's actually just a high school student. She commands them to bring him in right now, but the soldier warns that it won't be a simple task. The colonel thinks to himself that they must keep people like him under control. Just then, Officer O bursts into the room from outside. She smiles with a dark look and beckons him into her office. The soldier wonders if she will send hunters after the boy, but the colonel warns that if she refuses, they will be forced to make him come. Officer Jun Hwano walks in and asks if anything exciting has happened around here. Suddenly, the view shifts to a ruined place where a strange doorway has burst open. Someone points and shouts, urging everyone to look at the thugs they've just beaten up. Another man claims they got what they deserve for stealing from him as well. The camera follows the footsteps of Kelu and his friends as they walk. After being gone for a while, the two finally land back on Earth. Jintai remarks that it looks like everyone already knows exactly what he did. Kelu smiles with joy, saying it's wonderful to be back home. All of a sudden, a person steps up right in front of them and halts. Someone shouts Kelu's name, and the whole group freezes to stare. A woman named Seung A. Choi, not yet fully formed, steps forward in front of everyone. She steps forward, introduces herself, and tells us she's here carrying a message from the army. Kelu thinks about the offer while Jint stares at how beautiful she is. The lieutenant tries to say something, but she cuts him off and keeps walking. He shouts out to Jint while the woman asks him to hold on for just a moment. Seung A shouts an offer for him to become an officer, but Kelu just turns it down, saying he isn't interested. She's about to get mad, but a hand on her shoulder stops her in her tracks. The man calls him a cocky student, and Kelu stops right there to stare him down. The officer swings at him, but Kelu raises his arm to catch the hit. He smirks and asks if the rookie is finally ready to talk. Kelu is thrown backward by the crash. Then he snarls and runs at his opponent to fight back. Then, he lets loose a rapid series of blows against the military officer. Jint watches the wild scene unfold, screaming out Chaolu's name as chaos swirls around them. The officer manages to block one of Chaolu's blows with his arm. Chaolu is shocked by his opponent's surprising strength and speed, only to be warned that he's just a rookie compared to the tough fighters from Neo Seoul. Kelu grabs his chest and repeats the name of the place he just heard. The officer orders him to take up his duty and join the army. Kelu thinks back to the hard tests waiting in Nova, and when a man offers him a chance to join, Kelu agrees, noting that he looks very strong. Then he promises to give it his all, but he asks for one thing first. He bolts forward, screaming that he won't join the army no matter what anyone says. The officer accepts the challenge and laughs at the threat, calling it cute. Kelu leaps at him and asks if he still finds the attack cute now. He screams while gathering all his power for a mighty strike. Then the blow hits the officer's guard hard and true. The man wonders where that power came from, feeling the heavy hit in his arms. Suddenly, Kelu launched a flurry of strikes that the officer struggled to block. He ends the round by hitting the officer so hard that the man flies backward. The soldier stands out of breath, confused by what is unfolding in the battle. He quickly realizes he can't stop any of his opponent's strikes. The officer rushes in to fight, driven by his need to save his pride. He tries to land a knockout punch, convinced he can't lose, but Kelu stops the officer's fist with just one hand. He throws a mighty punch that sends the soldier soaring through the air. The officer hits the ground hard, knocked out cold by that one big hit. Jintai asks if Kelu won, while the other guy remarks on how inhuman that fight was. The lieutenant sprints over to the officer lying hurt on the ground to help him. Chiu nods, saying the fight wasn't half bad before turning to leave and telling him they'll meet in Nova. The woman asks if the officer is crying, and he says the kid is strong. The man wipes the blood from his face and claims the kid gave him a beating. He makes a promise to himself that he will never forget the name Chao Lu Kong. The camera moves to show a stranger quietly watching the old house where the grandfather lives. From the inside, the grandfather wonders if the world is really coming to an end. He admits he only believed the story after his grandson brought the giant axe back home. Xiaolu asks him to come to Nova, but his grandfather says no. The old man tells his family he won't be here long and wants to stay right where he is. Xiaolu nods and admits that the place is simply too dangerous for his grandfather. He warns that when the time comes, he'll drag him along with him, no matter what. Just then, the doorbell rang, and Grandpa wondered if he'd invited someone over. Kala looks shocked and says that whoever rang the bell must be super fast. Jala leans in to ask if his friend learned anything new about that other world. Jintai says yes, but the government is hiding the truth about Nova. He realizes that the people who know the truth are using it to their advantage. Jint clung to the soldier's words about a place named Neo Seoul. He explains that Chongju isn't the only place where a portal can open. He explains that the government and big companies are building Nova in Neo Seoul, a place linked to a portal that opened 2 years ago. Kaida figured that this amounts to a decade for Nova. Jintai warns that since the thing is already built, there won't be any rewards to be found there. Kelu says the new land is great, but staying there would slow him down, so he heads to Neo Seoul to get better weapons and gear. Jintai wonders how they will get there, and Chao jumps up to leave right away. He grins with confidence, boasting about his own special methods, just as the scene quickly changes to a car racing down a lonely road. His old team agrees to go along with them, but first they need to finish up their own work. Kelu waves them on, promising to catch up once they've sorted everything out. He smiles, and says he only gets rid of people who threaten him. Suddenly, Jintai glances out the window and sees they've made it. The car rolled to a halt before a huge building, where a glowing doorway opened up in the sky. The sign marks the spot as the Poo Portal, which people also call Neo Soul. Jint gazes at the strange spot with curiosity, yet Kailu just shrugs and says it doesn't matter. He then gets ready, saying that what really matters is that he can grow stronger right there. Jint was blown away by Neo Soul, proving the name was more than just a title. He notices it looks just as developed as the old Joseon dynasty. All of a sudden, a woman close by begins screaming for help. She points out a thief sprinting through the crowd with a sword. The kid looks around, seeing bad guys everywhere, and says so. As the thief lunges forward screaming for people to move, Chu steps in and slaps a single hand over his face to stop him. He then throws the man down hard and holds him firmly on the ground. He stares with pure determination and shouts that he has finally reached Neo Soul. Then the scene shifts, and the two of them are sitting outside at a restaurant. The woman they helped brings the pair 2 bowls of soup. She thanked them, saying they had saved her entire month's savings. Jint raves about how amazing civilization is, while Chilu simply thanks everyone for the food. Then he remembers the taste of crocodile and begins to weep. Then he is stunned to see how many bowls Chiyu has already finished. The woman invites them to eat more for free, explaining it's a gift from her home. Chiyu shakes it off, saying it's nothing and that he's always there to help whenever she calls. As he takes a bite, the woman warns them that this land is full of invaders. Jintai then wondered if these scary things happen often in this part of the world. She says the strong now hunt the weak to survive, but Kelu thinks that's perfect because the bad guys will just be his lunch. Before they jump into a fight, the woman tells them to use their discovery skill first. She notices it's their first time together and tells them that knowing this skill is really important. She shows that this power lets you peek at what others can do. Jintai's excitement makes Xiaolu jump up and tell his friend they need to head out right now. She asks him if he's planning to go hunting without any gear. She keeps insisting that you have to come prepared with the right gear before you go hunting. The view shifts to reveal a brand new suit of leather armor. The two show up in armor, and Jint says now they just need some weapons. He sprinted toward the workshop the woman had pointed out to them before. Kelu and Jint reach the workshop, and the boy looks around, wondering where the master is. The scene shows an older man who looks like he is hiccuping. He looks at the pair and asks what they want. Kelu asks for weapons. Jint complains about the stench, and the man shakes his head, saying he has none and telling them to leave. Jint presses on, wanting to know if he accepts custom orders and can craft any weapon you desire. The blacksmith tells us that every workshop in the city has vanished. Then Kyla asks why the workshops just vanished. The man says that bandits have taken over the iron mines on Abong Mountain. Kaida wonders if these bandits also rob the folks who call this place home. The blacksmith explains the 3 great ones, telling them that Ho is the leader. He says the man is a wanted criminal leading a massive gang. Kelu's eyes spark with excitement as he asks the man if they can fix their weapons in exchange for taking out the leader. The blacksmith stops and asks how he got the axe when he sees it. He promises that if they help him out, he'll craft any weapon they want. Jalu spins around to head out, promising that he'll return when he finds the perfect weapon. Jintai questions why he needs another weapon when he already has an axe. He says staying ready is key since fighting styles shift, but the boy wonders if they can really hunt anything in this place. The scene shows another group that has already captured the owl they were looking for. Then Kelu and Jintai notice another group is already there. They discover they are surrounded and the hunting ground is already taken. Jintai starts to grumble, but Chu shushes him and says to hang on for just a second. He bends down, grabs a tiny stone from the dirt, and holds it in his hand. With amazing skill, he hurls the stone with such force that it flies through the air. The object shoots through the air and crashes into something with a massive thud. A stone crashes down and knocks the owl out of the air. Jint freezes in shock as the beast crashes down right before his eyes. He steps up close and sees that the animal lying on the ground is really an owl. Shalu explained that he wasn't feeling an animal at all, but something completely different. Sheldo orders Jint to rush over to the fallen owl and grab the glowing skill stone. He swallows the item, instantly gaining the power to see his own data, and when Jint asks what it shows, he's ready to reveal the secret. A window pops up to show the tribe's special powers and talents he has learned so far. Kelu studied the window, remembering all the tricks he had learned. Then he spots a skill named Fair's Blessing waiting on his list. He halts his steps and locks his gaze tightly on the Fair's Blessing skill. Jint asks what the new skill reveals about his information, but Kalu turns to him and says he can't see anything. Two men hid in a tree and watched the pair from far away. Two men stood ready, Sergeant Yongu Kuki and Captain Junyup Choi. The captain stares in shock as a fresh cut suddenly opens up on his face. The sergeant points at the wound, and the captain runs his hand over his own face. The stone struck the bird just as it was about to reach him. The captain tells us he needs to join their crew, while the sergeant points the way they're heading. The sergeant can't shake the feeling that they're actually walking straight up to a Bong Mountain. Meanwhile, Jintai asks Kelu if they've reached the bandits' territory yet, while hiding in the shadows. The bandits can't help but wonder how anyone would dare to step into their territory. One of the men remarks that the kid seems like he's got a ton to give. One of the bandits spots the axe and calls it a beautiful weapon. The leader sneers, mocking the pair by saying they are practically begging to be robbed. Then their leader, Hak Jang, shouts that the hunt is finally starting. The pair finally reached a Bong Mountain, the very peak the blacksmith had warned them about. People claim there are no bandits, even though they are already deep inside. He asks Kelu if he's certain to win against the three powerful giants, but Kelu replies that he won't lose and can't wait to swing his axe, only to suddenly spot something moving oddly to his side. He dashes forward to block the flying arrow and shield Jint from harm. He swings his axe at the last second and manages to knock the arrow away. Suddenly, a bunch of bandits jump out, surrounding the two with bows and arrows ready to shoot. Kelu smiles and remarks that they are being given quite a warm welcome. He sees that the thick fog and towering mountains create the perfect battlefield. Then he shouts a warning to Jintai, telling him they've walked right into a trap. He warns his friend to hold back as a fresh volley of arrows rains down on them. With his tough ogre skin, he stands alone and blocks every single arrow flying at him. The arrows bounce off him harmlessly, leaving him completely unharmed. Jintai shouts from behind, checking if he's okay after the fight. Kelu shouts at Jintai to leave right away because things have gone terribly wrong for him. He says there is no way to get out of the forest now. Jintai spots something odd and wonders if the arrows hold a deadly poison. Kalu admits that his tough ogre skin won't stop their deadly poison. He insists his friend is only getting in the way and tells him to leave again. Then he tightens his fist and warns Jint not to underestimate him. The boy shouts that he's going to get help and takes off running. Kala steps forward, ready to finally have some fun in this fight. He grips the axe with both hands, ready to strike. The night is dark, but a scream rings out from far away. The scene shifts as the blacksmith brings down his hammer and takes out one of the bandits. Meanwhile, Xiaolu readies his axe to strike down another enemy. He feels the poison taking over, and he's losing control. Out of nowhere, a bandit jumps out with a knife to strike him from behind, but Kelu spins around, swings his axe, and shouts that the fight isn't over yet. The bandits are shocked that he can still walk with the poison in his blood. Kelu realizes he can't afford a long fight, so he decides to strike now. He leaps into the air, spinning with the axe in his hands to strike. In a flash, he knocks out every enemy around him at once. Kelu's hit sends out a giant shockwave that shakes everything around it. He sprints toward the mountain base, shouting that he's almost there, only to halt dead in his tracks when he spots something blocking his path. He gazes at the massive hole, lost in thought trying to figure out how it suddenly appeared before him. Chiyu smiled as it finally clicked for him what had happened and why he was there. Suddenly, a voice shouts that he's a very hard target to catch. Leader Hak Jang stepped forward, impressed that you've managed to get this far. Kelu asks if he is the one in charge, having just realized he was led right there. Hak says he finds it fun to try and catch someone as interesting as him. Kelu glares at him, his face twisted in disappointment that he'd call this a hunt. The leader speaks as if he's still fine, even though he's been poisoned. Hachel says that soon he'll be nothing but a rock dropping down into the pit. He give him a break, hinting that he might just need to be useful. Jello smiles and says that if this were a warrior's battle, he would take the risk. He jumps to his feet, shouting that he won't let anyone decide his fate for him. The leader shouts that he's crazy while watching the young man leap back. As he plummets, he screams that he'd rather jump than let a bandit kill him. He plunges into the water, sinking down with bones and gear tumbling beside him. Chilu fades away, wondering if he's about to die right there. Suddenly, the scene shifts and Aiden is all alone in a place he doesn't know. He glances around and sees the hills of Valhalla, the place he calls home. He then thinks if maybe this is the wild place inside a barbarian's heart. He remembers his father once speaking about a special place where you could train your soul. Aiden wonders why he's standing there looking like a kid from his childhood. Suddenly, he feels something odd and puts his hand on his chest. Suddenly, a bunch of tiny, colorful beings zoomed around him. The caption tells us that those creatures are spirits called up by fairies. Aiden warned that for a barbarian, a fair's blessing is actually a curse. A flashback reveals that the spirits have been by his side since the moment he was born. He still recalls the day he told his friends, only for them to think he was gross. As soon as the secret got out, every barbarian shouted for him to be burned at the stake. His family turned against their tribe, and he blames himself, but his mother says it isn't his fault and tells him to embrace who he really is. She waves goodbye with a smile and tells him to take care of himself. Aiden tells us that since then, he has turned away from both the spirits and himself. He isn't sure if this has locked his soul inside the past, but he dries his tears and says he must live no matter what. He looks back at the brave things his parents did to keep him safe from everyone else. So he sat down and said that maybe he could heal his wounds right here. He starts to focus, telling himself he must have full control over every part of his body. He promises to train his mind and body until he can stand the pain without flinching. Back in reality, Kelu coughs, his body racked with pain. He screams that he has to get every drop of poison out of his body right now. He blinked open his eyes and found he could move again. Then he spoke, saying his body felt lighter, as if it had finally been set free. The screen lights up with a row of alerts telling you how well you can stand poison. He bursts out of the water, letting out a huge roar with every bit of strength he has. A message pops up to tell him he has just unlocked the poison resistance skill. He says he made it through and has taken one more step toward becoming a warrior. He says he survived and is closer to becoming a warrior, celebrating his newfound strength. But then he realizes the danger ahead and wonders how to escape as he walks through the pit and feels a breeze blowing from a certain direction. A cool breeze drifts from a big stone that looks like it's blocking the way. As he touches the stone, he feels it wobble and slips right out of his hand. Shalou pulls the stone away, opening a door to a dark tunnel that waits just ahead. He stumbles upon a hidden, empty nest that serves as a secret dungeon for a unique mission. Thrilled, he shouts that this crisis is actually a golden chance for him. The scene shifts to Jint sprinting in a panic to find help. A bandit screams for him to halt, claiming he can't escape, while Jint roars back, daring them to try and stop him. He's grabbed by a bandit who shouts that he finally caught him. The bandit slams him to the ground, leaving him unable to move. Then he lifts his sword and promises to look after his things. Suddenly, a hard blow knocks the bandit away, just as he is squeezing Jint's throat. The bandit crumples to the ground while Jint just stares, completely lost. Suddenly, two soldiers step out of the woods to ask if he is all right. He trembles in fear and demands to know who they are, but the captain simply says to wait. The bandits ring them in, so the captain steps up to face them first. The bandits rush forward, screaming at the two soldiers. Captain Choi pulls out his blade and shouts for everyone to charge. The view moves to the dark dungeon where blood has splattered all over the walls. Kala stomps on a null and calls him mutt, but then a huge horde of Nlees shows up and just keeps coming. He starts to doubt himself because killing so many of them isn't stopping the trouble. Suddenly, the wall of the cave is blocked by the shadow of a chief holding a whip. The chief yells orders to his soldiers, pushing them all to charge forward. Finally, the leader stepped out of the shadows to command his army in the dark dungeon, only to realize that the NLES there had their own commander leading them. Shelda charges forward, shouting at the mutts to move out of his way right now. He punches and slashes his way through the enemies, clearing a path for himself. He jumps at the chief, getting ready to smash him with his axe. A message pops up on the screen, telling him his only goal is to beat the Null Chief. The warlock known as the Null Chief gets ready to fight. Kella shouts out, questioning if he is truly the leader of this tribe. The chief casts a spell and sends a burst of fire flying at him. As the blast erupts, Chaolu throws his arms up to block the shockwave. He slams on his ogre skin and growls that last greeting was pretty rude. Chu steps up to fight back, declaring, now it's his turn, as the message reveals his throw will make him stronger and faster. He hurls the axe, spinning through the air like a deadly star straight for the chief. The chief stops the attack by holding the axe with his staff. He begins to laugh while holding the axe that Chaolu threw. While the chief looks away, Kyla jumps from above to strike him directly. He tells the dirty mutt not to jump at the chance to attack so fast. The strike hits the chief, creating a massive explosion that blasts the ground apart. As the clash ends, the axe and the staff both crash to the ground. Chilu stands up and grabs both weapons, gripping one in each hand. He sees that the staff is thick and strong enough to be a weapon. He declares that barbarian warriors take the chief's head as their prize, raises his axe with a final strike to end the battle, celebrates his victory in the dungeon, and then is shocked by the huge reward he receives. A pop-up window tells him he has unlocked the chief's crest. He also gets the warlock's old staff, which the guardian now wields. The window also tells him that the bonus is to wake up the world map. A weird mark starts to appear on one of his arms. A map suddenly appears in his hand, leaving him wondering what he has found. He looks at the map and sees it only shows the places he has already been to. Then he glances at the map and spots a few exclamation marks dotted all over it. He feels a thrilling rush of excitement when he realizes the whole place is still waiting to be discovered. All at once, a warning beep rings out, and he begins to wonder what just happened. The dungeon begins to fill with rising water, and he knows he is being trapped. He quickly grabs all the coins and stones before stepping outside. Chu slips out of the rising water, gasping for air after the sudden flood in the cave. He looks up and sees the walls are too smooth to climb, so he's trapped inside. He presses his hand against the pit wall, knowing there's no way up, until a voice surprises him and makes him wonder if it's Jint calling. Jint yells out to him, and Kelu responds by telling him he's right there below. The boy lets out a sigh of relief and shouts that he's going to drop a rope down. Kelu feels happy to know his friend really meant it when he said he would help. He climbs out of the pit and sees soldiers there, asking if he wants to look at something. The captain decides that since they've been spotted, they have to follow and guard Kelu. The soldiers promise to keep their military secrets hidden, and Jintai makes sure everyone knows who they are. He welcomed them, telling them that the pair had saved his life from the bandits just before. Captain Choi stepped forward to introduce himself, while Sergeant Kai nodded, letting everyone know they work together as colleagues. Kelu leans on his sharp eyes to see that the two men are tough. The soldiers worry that he might realize they are soldiers. Kalu asks if they've come to hunt down the local bandits too. He asks what kind of grudge they hold against the mountain gang. The sergeant shouts a made-up story about his mother being killed by bandits. Kael'da promises to help him get revenge because they once saved Jint. The two look puzzled as the sergeant insists he's still just a student. He then promises that his mother will finally be able to rest in peace. The sergeant thanks him and apologizes to his mother for the lie he told. Kael'da laughs, and the sergeant realizes he's speaking a language all his own. The captain stops and asks what the plan is for dealing with the bandits now. He turns around with a grin as the captain calls out his name, Mr. Chaolu. The soldier stops himself, calls out to his brother Chaolu, and asks about the plan. Chaolu says they'll check out the land first before setting up their new home. He says that next, they just have to march in and crush their leader. The captain calls him younger brother and tells him there's no need to keep searching. He points and shows that the main base sits on the fourth peak to the east. Kael'da asks how he knows. He replies he scouted the place for revenge, so he heads straight to the mountaintop to find the leader. He points ahead, telling us that real men stand their ground and face their enemies straight on. The captain swings his sword, barely dodging the enemy's attacks. Just as another bandit pulls the trigger, Xiaolu smashes the poisoned arrows into pieces with one powerful hit. A window pops up to tell him that his poison resistance is now active. He charges forward, yelling that the bandits' attacks can't stop him anymore. Xiaolu cheers, shouting that his brand new resistance skill is totally awesome. The sergeant says that even though it was reckless, he managed to get there all by himself. The captain nods in agreement, noting that at this pace, he might just manage to beat the leader. The scene reveals that three main groups control that part of the map. First, there's Neo Seoul, guarded by the army sitting to the southwest. Next up are the Abong Mountain bandits hiding in the northeast, and the very last group is the invading knights charging in from the northern desert. The captain tells us that the army still can't stop the bandits. That's why Neo Seoul couldn't stay safe without those soldiers around. He warns that if Major Lee gets hurt, it's all over. He wondered if Chiyu could take on the leader for them. Just as Chiyu trips and stumbles, Jintai immediately asks him what went wrong. The captain warns that he's burning up with a fever, and Kella groans. A window flashes a warning that his stone absorption has become dangerously overloaded. The captain asks how many he used, and Chiyu replies that it was about 30. The sergeant warns that pushing this far could kill him and begs to turn back, but the captain shakes his head, saying it's too late as dozens of bandits burst out from everywhere, surrounding them. One of the men spots Chaolu and stares at him, looking shocked. Chao spots him instantly and remarks that it's the same man who fell into the pit. He charges forward, ready to push through the crowd. Chao swung his weapon at him, yelling for the little ones to move out of the way. He bellows loudly, demanding the leader step out, declaring that he has come to seek revenge. As the sergeant scrambles to help, the leader sits back and calmly picks his teeth. Suddenly, Hawk steps forward and asks, "Who dares to call the name of the Mountain King?" Kilda sneers, mocking the bandit for thinking so highly of himself. The leader promises to put him down for good this time, since he managed to survive the trap. He screams at his men to charge, and they all rush headlong into the battle. The two soldiers clash with the bandits, slashing through them with their swords to carve a way forward. The leader jumps into action to fight, promising to handle Kale himself. The leader rushes in with a weapon, but Chalu steps up and catches the strike with his own axe. Ho thinks his defense was great and is eager to find out just how long he can keep it up. Chalu yells at him to shut up and start fighting right now. Then they start trading a flurry of hard, fast hits. Hawk grins, ready to hit him harder, but Chalu grabs his axe handle and smacks him right in the stomach. The blast throws the bandit leader high into the air. Down on the ground, Chalu admits that his opponent is far too strong to beat him this way. He also sees that the leader's weapon reaches too far, so he grips his axe tight and thinks of a new plan, deciding to keep it simple by running forward and throwing the axe with all his might. Tokyo twirls his weapon through the air, trying to catch the flying thrown axe. Chalu draws on his skill, pouring every ounce of his strength into the axe throw. The two weapons smash together in midair with a violent crash. The axe hits the chain on the other weapon, but doesn't stop, so it keeps flying forward with all its power. Chalu shouts that he will take on the leader with nothing but his bare fists. He rushes straight ahead, landing a fast series of hits on his opponent. Hawk dodges the blow and asks if it matters, but the other man replies that his own weak human body can't stand up to him. Then he hits Kelu right in the stomach with all his strength. Kelu slams the ogre skin onto him and shouts that he's no longer human. The leader admits he has ogre skin, but his hit sends Kelu flying backward and cuts him off. Kelu turns around, yells that he's done with all this nonsense, and lets it fly. Hole grumbles that today's young folks won't listen to what their elders have to say. He also summons a skin of ogre hide that is tougher than steel. Chaolu is shocked when he realized the leader possessed the very same skill. Hole charges forward, shouting that the kid hasn't seen anything yet. They clash with such power that a shockwave rips through the air, and the force of their fight knocks Chaolu so hard he spits out a mouthful of blood. Ho strikes with a mighty blow that sends Chaolu flying backward with all his might. The others stand frozen, staring in shock at the scene before them. Jintai admits that no one he has ever met can match the strength of Chaolu. The sergeant says they should grab Kaeldu and run if they can. Suddenly, the captain points up at the sky, and the sergeant looks in that direction. Hakel grabs Kelu by the head and squeezes as hard as he can. Kelu lets out a scream of agony as the leader keeps crushing his head. The two soldiers are left guessing what kind of power he's using. Just as a bandit lunges at the distracted Jint, Captain Choi steps in and saves the boy right on time. One of the bandits warns that the chief is throwing his best move into the fight. Pokiel unleashes his full power and declares that they are all gone. He wonders where Chiu's confidence is gone. The leader admits he hunted 2 ogres instead of 1, claims to embody raw power, and a message appears explaining the strength the ogres hold. Suddenly, Kelo bursts into laughter as though nothing is even happening. He asks if that's all the bandit leader has left, then grabs him and tells him to stop acting so tough. He begins to squeeze, and the leader suddenly notices something is wrong with him. Just then, Chiu let out a scream that looked like raw energy was pouring right out of him. The scream is so loud that everyone stops to watch the fight, confused by what is happening in the middle. As the leader clutches Kelu tightly, Jintai screams his name. Kelu lets out a loud burp as the system window pops up to tell him he's finally swallowed those stones. Okial asks if he just burped, calling the sight strangely odd. He grabs Chiu's belly and threatens to knock him out for real. But Kelu yanks his arm and demands to know who said he was just playing around. He mutters that something has been nagging at him since the fight began, while the leader notices that Kelu has suddenly grown stronger without knowing why. Kelu hurls the leader high into the air with such power that it seems like a miracle. He shouts that you must drive your strength into your opponent and let go with your energy, then squeezes tighter to crush the bandit leader's shoulder before standing up and asking if it was easy while the boss lies defeated on the ground. The bandits start to wonder if their boss is about to get beaten by a beginner. The captain sees the leader winning and knows he's in trouble, so Hole screams at him to stop messing with his arm. He snatches up a flail and lunges at him with every ounce of strength he has. The leader lunges forward, screaming that he's going to kill him for what happened. Kala twists out of the flail's swing and gives his opponent a grin. The captain feels the stones inside him and sees his reflexes have gotten faster. The leader keeps charging forward, but Kalu slips away from every strike. He grabs Ho's arm with one hand and stops his attack. The captain says he is shutting down the ogre's scary superhuman powers. Chiu lets out a scoff and asks where the powerful figure he mentioned is now. He releases the leader and admits that he's had enough of seeking personal revenge. Chiu declares that it is time to bring justice to Yong-Su's mother and the people. Ho spots the axe and screams that it's his favorite tool for fighting. He screams that he despises scumbags who prey on the weak and attacks them. With one powerful swing of his axe, he finally knocks out the bandit leader. Hoyle's body crashes to the ground, his journey ending with that final, crushing blow. The captain stares in disbelief, shouting that he only just took down one of the big three. Right then, the leader's treasure pouch floats up into the air for everyone to see. Kella moves toward the bandits, who plead for their lives while asking to keep everything he takes. He snatches the bag, complains that it's too heavy to carry, and then the leader vanishes right before Kalu's eyes, leaving him confused and asking why it happened. The captain tells Kalu that rankers are monsters and asks how she can become one. He tells her, "You must hit 50 points in any skill," and she checks her stats, realizing she hasn't reached that mark yet. The captain admits the ogre beat him, so Chilu calls both of them back and treats them to soup. The captain sees that Chilu has already passed the point where a normal person could go. As Jintai asks if he is okay, he thinks about Chiyu Kong. A voice declares he can't wait to see just how strong he will become. Back at the restaurant, Jintai finds a bow in the bag and offers it to the soldiers, but they refuse. The captain insists that his crew deserves the reward and steps forward to show himself. He shows that they are soldiers from the Defense Operations Command Unit. Kello takes a sip of his drink and says he's already figured it out. He explained that their strange behavior was just the captain testing them to see if they were trustworthy. Jalo asks for the verdict, and the captain replies that he's all right. He invites him to the government office to get his reward. The captain reveals he's 12 years older than the sergeant, who is only 11. Jella beamed with a happy smile and told everyone he now had 2 older brothers. The soldiers chuckled, yet in their hearts, they knew that without their commander's orders, they would have taken action themselves. The scene shifts to the next day at the central government office in Neo-Seoul. A man wonders why the city's hero hasn't shown up yet. The guard calls him captain, but he glares angrily and corrects him. Meet Major General Junpil Park, a serious military man who spends his time lost in a world of make-believe games. The door swings open and the guard shouts that Chaolu and Jin have arrived. As Chaolu walks into the room, everyone stops and whispers how amazing he is. He says who he is, and Kaeldu asks if he is the tribe's leader. The major felt a spark of excitement, wondering if Chaolu was just as hooked on role-playing as he was. He thanks them for their hard work and promises a reward along with a special offer. Chaolu insists he's not joining the army, but the major says no. Instead, he invites him to build his very own team of hired fighters. Kalu is tempted by the idea that he could walk away without ever officially signing up for the army. He asks what full support means, and the major begins to explain. Kalu's eyes light up with excitement at the promise of hot soup, and he eagerly agrees while quickly asking what price they want to pay for this treat. The major tells the team their first real job is to stop the enemy knights from taking over. Jint panics while being dragged along by one of the big 3. A strange voice whispers from the dark corners, asking if you're already scared. The person warns that they can't fight the invading knights. Then Sheldon noticed the air in the room suddenly get very cold. The woman steps forward to ask who the rookie is who thinks he can take what belongs to her, but he just stares her down and introduces himself as the proud warrior Chel Dukong. The woman draws her sword and shouts that the boy is talking back. But Kelu holds the sword's sharp edge back with just one finger. She thrusts her sword forward and shouts that someone really needs to learn some manners. He asks if she thinks it's polite to have a sword pointed at her. She steps forward, introducing herself as Major Yunyon Lee and praising his bravery. He smiles and says it's a pleasure to meet her, but when he calls her Yunyong instead of using her title, the major gets angry. She screams at him for his boldness while he retorts by challenging how she dares to greet him. The major leans in to ask if he's really goading the legendary swordmaster of Joseon. The two glare at each other in anger, but Chaolu dares her to fight. The major general steps in and begs the future heroes to stop fighting right there. He tosses some snacks to Kalu, and she goes wild with excitement, instantly forgetting everything else. Then the major general pulls Major Lee aside for a quiet chat somewhere else. He calls her attitude insubordination, and she questions the mission. She claims she can fight the knights, but the major general stops her before she can finish. He tells her it's time to admit they can't win by themselves. In a flash of the past, we see Major Lee cut down the knight leader, and her soldiers cheer wildly as they celebrate their hard-won victory. She wonders why the knight's leader let her win the fight. He claims she's all grown up, but she points her sword at him and demands answers. The big guy shouts, wondering why she won the fight. He said the gift was a goodbye present for a former student. He then challenges her to kill him, warning that Neo's soul won't survive. She readies herself, and he urges her to strike the final blow, yet she sheathes her sword and chooses to spare her opponent's life. He calls her soft, but she refuses to accept a victory from a traitor. She vows that someday her soldiers will finally knock the invading knights off their horses. Back in the present, She declares that she must face the leader all by herself. The Major General nods in agreement and says he'll let her handle things her own way this time. He shouts to her that he's got a plan to make sure everything works out. Kello ponders the idea of joining his squad with the army. The Major General warns that the knights are a danger that must be destroyed. Kello is shocked to find out that the enemy knights ride horses into battle. Kello's eyes light up with excitement as he begs to keep the horses once they win. He thinks of his father, the finest rider the barbarian tribe ever had, and so he agrees to the deal but adds one final condition to settle first. Kello steps up to Major Lee, who looks at him in confusion as Kello asks if she's also ready to settle who's in charge. The Major smiles and nods, finally saying it's something she can accept. The scene shifts to the central government's training ground, where Jint worries about his broken axe, and Kello reassures him that a sword will do since the fighting style is the same. So he presses the button on the glowing interface in front of him. The ranker's treasure pouch is plucked straight from his inventory. Hente worries that her sword looks far stronger than his. Major Lee stands ready, holding her sword in her right hand while waiting patiently. Xiaolu tells us that in a fight, only amateurs are the ones to blame their weapons for their failure. He gets into position and says he's a pro ready to fight. The Major General hesitates, wondering if he truly wants to face the greatest swordsman with nothing but his own blade. The Major declares it's time to silence him once and for all, while the Major General warns them to fight carefully since both men are too important to lose. Kello holds his sword steady and asks her to strike first, showing respect for her elders. The Major is puffing up his chest and getting a big head just because he managed to beat Hakel. She jumps into the air, ready to smash down on her target. She promises to teach him how to truly wield a sword, but he manages to parry her strike, and their blades crash together in midair. He shouts that it's his turn and readies a powerful counterattack, but she sidesteps him and warns that moving so fast means his blow will miss her. The big one lashes out, but he just barely manages to slip past her blows. He finally understands that she moves faster than anyone he has ever fought. She remarks that he's dodging the blows much better than she thought he would at the start of the fight. She asks him if he's okay with her turning things up a little. She pours all her magical power into her blade until it starts to shine with energy. Xiaolu's eyes go wide when she realizes her own sword is now glowing with power too. He begins to dodge her hits, they're coming from every direction. His sword strikes against hers, but she is already all around him, striking with incredible speed. She blurs into a whirlwind of her own ghosts, spinning fast around him. She asks him what he thinks about the Justin Swordmaster now. He finally sees that she's strong and quick, and knows he might lose. A message appears to tell him he has mastered the sword, and he immediately understands. He dares her to try his sword skills, and instantly she charges, only to have him block her strike with a swift parry. The Major is shocked, barely able to believe he managed to block her blow. Two figures spring into the air and start trading heavy hits. The Major smiles as he realizes he's finally matching her pace in the fight. She was shocked because he barely managed to dodge her attacks. In a flash, Chiyu is gone, leaving nothing but a cloud of dust where he was. Major wonders if her sharp eyes suddenly can't keep up with him anymore. Suddenly, Chiyu pops up behind the big man and claims he's the faster of the two. He strikes her with such force that she is knocked flying, but the Major barely recovers before the impact drags her down. She sees that when it comes to power, he wins out too. So she plans to strike his blind spot to win, but Sheldu just tilts his head back to dodge her hit. He leaps back to escape the attack and puts some space between himself and the Major again. The Major despairs, wonders who this guy is. She can't believe she's losing to a rookie, but he cuts her off. He thrusts his sword forward, noting that she is looking away once more. He shouts out that he, Kellicom, is the clear winner of the match. The scene moves to where the army's hired soldiers have set up their new camp. Kella glances around and sees how roomy the spot is, and he really likes it. The sergeant instructs the Major to address Kellu as captain, but she pushes back by asking what the mercenary leader intends to do with them. The captured bandits are shaking with fear. Chiyu grins with a mischievous look, telling everyone he's already got a plan ready. In a memory from the past, Chiyu tells the Major to call him Big Brother. She gives in with a heavy heart, but he acts like he never heard her. The Major watches, puzzled by how the swordswoman fell so easily. Two soldiers cheer their win, but the Major gets mad at them. He shouts out, demanding to know who they're on and what just went down. A guard steps up to the Major, who stares him down hard before the man reports that all the mountain bandits have been caught. The biggest talk was about how many men their leader managed to gather. Suddenly, Kellu sneaks up behind Major Park. The Major jumps in surprise while Kellu asks if he can take the bandits for himself. He tells the Major he needs some mercenaries, and the Major agrees, though Kala warns he'll only take the ones he chooses himself. He steps up and yells, asking if the bandits remember him. He lets everyone fight and survive, promising that the winner gets a new life. The bandits wonder if meeting him is just another way to die, but they decide that if they must die, they'd rather take him down with them. Shu cheers on their bravery and admits they have real guts. He declares he'll only pick up what's left on the ground, and the major nods in agreement. Chiyu reaches out for a handshake, but then quickly pulls his hand back. The major asks about the gesture, wondering if it's just a Gen Z thing. He promises they'll be great friends, and Chiyu happily agrees. Chiyu waves goodbye, using his first name for the major and leaving him stunned. The major admits he's a psychopath who holds no respect for his elders. The main guy laughed and claimed he sounded totally cool during the chat. He says he wants to train them into a tribe ready for battle. The major questions this, saying they're criminals and can't be trusted, but Kalu reminds her that the Yongo clan were also ex-criminals. He says that fighting together is how trust grows, so he tells Jintai to lead them. Keller reminds him that he's the sub-leader and can handle it. He looks at the bandits and tells them they're now his new hired soldiers. The men let out a roar, ready to fight as part of the squad now. The captain gives a big nod, amazed that you pulled everyone together so fast. The major warns that the man is dangerous and tells someone to keep a close watch on him. A week later, the major learns that Chaolu has been reported to the government. He smashes the table and shouts to see who filed the complaint against him. The guard stepped up and told us that the colonel from the nearby base, Mirin Jiang, was right there. The major tightens her grip on the paper, showing she's still angry about what happened. The guard tells him to talk to the government because they can't catch them. Captain Choi steps in with urgent news about the mercenaries for the major. The major reads the report, wondering if Chiyu is already in trouble. He opened a file to read the observation report on the mercenaries. On the very first day, the captain made everyone rush to build a hut before the night was done. Over the next few days, he spent every day training and fighting all 60 bandits alone. The report says he beat anyone who ran away from the brutal training. Just before the attack, he grabbed his new axe from the forge and finally used the chieftain's crest to start his own group. He slams his finger down on the yes button, locking his choice to use the special item. He types Iron Head into the box where the window asked for a group name. The screen lights up with the squad's fresh stats, showing off their boosted healing and spirit. The group cheers for him as he celebrates the birth of his own tribe. He warns that they have a long road ahead before they can truly call themselves a warrior tribe, leaving the major shocked to discover that the crest they need can only be bought by the elite rankers. The captain tells us he found the item hidden away in a secret dungeon. The guard tells the major that showing the crest means the group is safe. He warns that anyone who runs away will soon show up on the map, so they can be tracked. As the major reads the report on the mercenaries, a spark of curiosity lights up his mind about the attack. As night closes in, the new squad stops to rest after Kailu gives the order. Major Lee sits by the campfire, lost in thought as she plans her next showdown with the leader. She isn't sure if she can beat him or if she even wants to try. Right at that moment, Chaolu comes over to ask why she isn't joining them for a meal. He tells her she'll need all her strength and gets her food ready. The major holds the bowl of food and says it feels wonderful. Kelu serves her soup, telling her she reminds him of his mother, but then he chugs it all down, leaving her furious. He tells her to be happy with what she has since that's all there is, and then Kelu suddenly stands up looking serious, which surprises the major. He wonders if she can't hear the noise, yet she hears nothing at all. Then, Cha knows it's the sound of horsemen's hooves getting closer. 3 riders watch a bunch of lizard people from the top of a hill. A voice chimes in to say that, just like always, there's plenty of food waiting down below for them. The leader commands his followers to kill everyone, knowing they can't keep up with their amazing speed. Chun, led by Kim, shouts for his men to prove their strength to the invading horsemen right now. The knights and lizard monsters both get ready for the fight that's coming. The leader keeps an eye out for a boss while he charges into the monsters. He screams for them to move, warning that his spear is on its way through. One of the creatures gets hit hard and falls defeated. The leader cheers on his group of invading knights after another win. The man shouts that they've won again, so he tells his crew to grab the loot and clear the spot just as a voice suddenly calls out his name and pulls him back. Chaolu steps in, declaring that he has arrived to stop the invading knights. He hits the ground hard, ready to fight the enemy. The leader asks who he is, and after he answers and praises their horses, the story moves forward. The man claims he has heard of him and was just doing what he was told. Kella laughs and insists he isn't taking orders from anyone else. He jumps forward screaming that he only hunts down raiders like the knight's leader, but the leader blocks his blow and insists they didn't steal a thing. The knight leader insists they are just explorers, not raiders. Kelu squeezes his spear tight, wondering if they're truly just explorers. He claims what he heard was different, yet he can't bring himself to believe the man. The leader sees that Kelu is far stronger than he is. He worries that if he keeps fighting, he might hurt everyone in his group. The man insists he'd rather die than hurt an innocent person. Shalu glares at him, trying to figure out if he's really being honest. He recalls a strange feeling washing over him right after he took down the other enemies. He stops and thinks he must check the story first before he chooses what to do. The major steps forward with her team, shouting at Chiyu not to push ahead by himself. She claims he finally caught the traitor from their own group, but Chiyu interrupts her to say he needs to check something with her first. He tells her the man says they aren't raiders and demands she admit the truth, but the major agrees they aren't raiders while warning that they are still very dangerous. Kella looks at her, confused that she would lie to him. The major explains that Chuan-I Kim is a traitor because he used to be one of their own soldiers, but he disagreed with them about the army's future. Finally, he walked away from the army and started his own new crew. He showed up again and gathered his people to stand up to the army and its commands. Shalu wonders aloud if they are raiders, and the major shoots him an angry glare in response. She warns that he's a threat because he holds all their military secrets. The leader says they never did any harm to Neo's soul or used their secrets wrong. Kaeldu says that this Chuan-I Kim feels like a very interesting person to him. The leader grabs him and demands an immediate choice: kill him now or walk away. He begs the other to let his soldiers go, hoping that his own death will finally prove they were innocent. Kella chooses to wait before removing the knight. He insists they aren't thugs and that no one should get killed there. He insists that the leader show him where to find strong horses. The man chuckles, claiming Kelu will let him live if he gives something in return. The leader says he'll show him how to get a horse, but it takes some special steps. He says that taming a horse in Nova is a lot harder than it is on Earth. The only way to save those creatures is to grab a pet pouch. He shows that the first thing we need is something called a red root pot. Chu asks how he can get it, but the leader warns him it won't be easy. The foggy woods come alive as a huge ogre starts walking through them. Kelu steps into the ogre basin, grinning at the sight of the huge monster he has never faced before, and readies himself to fight. He insists that coming alone was the right call, because he's already found what he was looking for. Kyla jumps off the cliff, shouting that breaking up is the quickest way to go. He insists that it's his job to take on the fiercest monsters and attacks. The ogre strikes back, showing it's a tough foe, and then roars in anger, ready to attack with all its power. The ogre's hit is so powerful that it breaks everything around them. Kyla looks shocked and admits the creature is just as strong as it appears. The ogre leaps forward to strike, but Kyla readies himself to block the hit. He quickly pulls the staff from his back to grab it. He swings his staff to block the blow, but the force hits him so hard that he flies backward. As his ogre's skin flares to life, he sees just how dangerous that blow really was. He wonders how his friends managed to beat the ogre and warns that rushing toward the charging beast is dangerous because one wrong blow could kill you. Shalu gives a sly grin, joking that it's time for a quick test with his weapon. He holds his breath, waiting for the ogre to strike before making his move. He grips the staff, and it starts to pulse with a strange red light. Kelu rushes forward and hits the ogre right on the head with his staff. The monster stumbles and roars in shock from the attack it just took. He smiles and says the weapon is far better than he expected, while the blacksmith confirms it's good as new. He shows that he used the staff Kaeldu took from the Null wisely. The blacksmith says the axe now hums with magic. The blacksmith promises that the weapon will be his faithful servant if he knows how to use it. Back in the fight, the ogre lets out a roar and charges forward to attack. The axe has a trick that lets you turn an enemy's strike back on them. Shalu casts her new magic spell, causing the monster to wobble on its feet. He spins to build up power and leaps onto the ogre to strike. The ogre looks up as he readies a final attack from above. He swings hard, slicing through the monster like it's made of water. He thanked the fight for the fun and joked that getting the ogre's skin was a breeze. Just then, the defeated ogre's body starts to glow with a strange energy. An ogre's magic orb pops into view, and he snatches it up right away. He swallows the glowing orb, unlocking the ogre's strength and breaking free from what humans can do. Hente walks up with his men, shouting that they've finally found the place. He says the treasure chest in the cave holds everything we need. One of the men suggests opening every chest, but Hente warns that 9 out of 10 are actually mimics. The men begin to joke, and Jint wonders why nobody seems afraid. He wishes a braver man had stepped in to take his place. Kelu insists he can take down the ogres all by himself, and tells everyone to go their separate ways. Jint wonders if Major Lee is heading into the cave, but she says no. She tells him she's going back to the village, leaving him alone until Shiodu steps in to comfort him by reminding him he's the sub-leader and he'll be okay. He says that if Jintai leads the team with skill, their victory will be a breeze. Hentei stared at the cave, repeating that Shiu had handed him this mission. He yells that he won't let him down and that he's already got a plan. He tells them the front line will spot the chest while the archers get ready to shoot. Jint pointed and yelled for everyone to start putting the plan into action. Then the story moves to a gorgeous sunrise rising over the Rocky Mountains. The knight leader shouts at his men to stop, build their camp, and wait there. His men talk quietly while he and his friend watch the morning light rise. One of them wonders if it's safe to give the horses to their group, but the leader reassures them that hoarding horses is pointless and they'll find other ways instead. The man warns that even with what they know, getting those materials together will be tough. The leader grins, telling us he has a feeling that guy will be just fine. The scene shifts to show Major Lee and his team marching toward the knight's camp. Kelu and Jint show up and join the rest of the group, right where they said they'd meet. The leader asks if they found everything, and Kelu confirms it. Proudly, the folks display the 4 bags of supplies he gathered all by himself deep in the cave. Chala then asks how many pots.